Celeste Walker-Harmon does, in fact, join us here on the Big Bid Theory hotline. Celeste, as I mentioned, went over her bio in the audio version of the podcast. She's the procurement officer for the city of Coral Gables down there in South Florida. Celeste, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Bill. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, yeah, no doubt. And so I kind of touched upon it in the audio version, how Celeste and I met, how we know each other, and just kind of as a recap here for the folks who are watching on YouTube. So NPI, the National Procurement Institute, held their annual event. I guess it was now a couple of months ago in beautiful San Diego, California. And as part of the program, they had their awards gala. And walking into the room, you walk in, there weren't any assigned seats, and I had the very good fortune that I saw a table, I saw some folks sitting around the table, and I sat down. Well, guess who was sitting to my left? Our very own Celeste. And so it was a great night, a great event.
We had a good time.
First of all, a great time, right? I was surrounded by people from Florida. That was one of the running jokes as the awards gala went along. Florida team, by the way, did great. Awards
so
everywhere.
Did Texas.
Texas did well as well. That's a good plug. Thanks, Celeste.
You're welcome.
But let's start there. Just kind of recap NPI. Again, I know it's been a couple of months ago, but as you reflect back, Celeste, what are some of the things that you learned? What did you get out of attending that event?
Definitely building relationships, meeting other people from other organizations and establishing relationships so that we can, support each other and get information from one another. Again, to some of the seminars or informational sessions about learning what's new and latest and greatest and kind of seeing what other people do well. So, in procurement, it's flattery when you copy someone. So to know what someone else does well so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel is usually a plus for us. So it was just, again, building relationships and then seeing what other people are doing really well and setting the stage for benchmarking your organization and kind of moving yourself forward. So it's always a good opportunity to be exposed to that.
Yeah, no doubt. Celeste knows this. Some in our audience might know this, but I just got back from South Carolina. They held their event in Myrtle Beach, and it was just agency folks from the state of South Carolina. But one of the things that always impresses me without fail when I go to these events, and Celeste touched upon it very, very well, is that sharing of ideas, that sharing of information, best practices. And Celeste, a moment ago, I heard you say a couple of times, you kind of used the words doing things well. Well, there in Coral Gables, let's start with some of the successes from yourself, your team. What have you been doing over the past year or so plus in helping your neighbors there in Coral Gables?
For one, we just rolled out a new ERP system. So if anyone has ever gone through that whole process knows it's quite the undertaking and a lot of work. And so we're really proud that we successfully, did the implementation for the ERP system. Along with that, we successfully rolled out citywide training to all of our user departments. So that was a big deal as well, too. So piggybacking on that, we have already established like a lot of protocols and guides for our user department, because again, they'll only do as well as you teach them. So we have made it a practice to make sure that we have put our user departments in a position to be successful. So we have made a big effort to roll out thorough procurement guides and process guides for all of our user departments. So we've also, signed up for a couple other awards. So we did get, our FAPO award along with NPI this year. And of course, we always apply for the UPPCC award. So those are some of the things that we're proud that we've done this year. So we're moving things forward.
Very good. And I could just tell, and again, I know I'm a little biased, but I can just tell from your energy, your personality, that you're a tremendous leader there in Coral Gables. But we've mentioned the NPI award. a couple of times, and this isn't necessarily a plug for NPI, but I guess it is in in part.
Mhm.
The NPI award, what was that process like for somebody who knows nothing about the NPI award?
Okay. The process is actually pretty in depth. It's pretty, detailed. It goes through a lot of different categories that it asks you for information to see if you're benchmarking yourself with your peers, and also far as the standard as far as procurement is concerned. So you go through a lot of questions with answering what do you do as far as how you document things, and do you have processes in place and procedures. And so really, for me, the whole process for the application starts the year after you get the award. So immediately I'm starting now for next year with being able to document, some of those things to make sure that you have met that threshold or that requirement for all of those categories. So it's an in-depth application process. And also you can use it, which I have in the past, to be a stepping stone for some improvements. So some of the questions or some of the things that you may not have scored well on or even got some points for, you can use that as a jumping point to make sure you implement that in your organization to benchmark yourselves. So I have done that in the past with using some things that we did not score well on as some of the things I wanted to implement in years moving forward. So
Interesting approach. I like it. So we've touched upon some successes, and we understand, I understand, you understand, everybody watching and listening knows that there are also challenges when it comes to working in purchasing, working in procurement. Again, when I was in South Carolina just a week ago or so, I'm hearing virtually everybody I speak with that, want more bidders, especially when it comes to small
yes,
businesses, women-owned
yes,
businesses, minority, veteran-owned businesses. That's a challenge, and just
yes.
the purchasing process itself, in crafting bids, RFPs, solicitations, getting those put together and published. So everybody, I'm pretty sure, pretty confident watching
Universally.
this understands it's not
Yeah.
easy what you
Mm-mm.
folks do. So if you can, and you don't have to, go through your day to day, Celeste, by any means, but
Mhm.
what are some of the challenges that you folks there in Coral Gables in your department are really having to roll up your sleeves and tackle?
um, we're universally, and it comes along with just being in public procurement, especially here in Florida. It's the transparency, as far as just being open, in which we have no problem with that, but it's just the level of transparency that's required here, for you just have to really be mindful of dotting all of your I's and crossing all of your T's to make sure that you have, made every step in, effort to make sure that you are being fair, as far as the solicitation process is concerned. Here we have met those challenges, and that's fine, but it's still a stressful, microscope to be up under as far as public procurement is concerned. And to what you alluded to, being in the conference with South Carolina, it has gotten pretty stressful to get competition, and not only just competition but good competition, solid suppliers, and bidders who can bid on our projects. And most recently it's really been hard with construction. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but it's tough getting good competition for construction projects here in South Florida. We happen to be in an area where the weather stays decent year round, and so we're building year round. So we have a lot of projects that we put out that we sometimes get none or one bidder, and that's pretty tough. So that has really been a major hurdle for us here in the last, like, at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and that echoes, and I kid you not, Celeste, you know this, but for anybody watching our conversation, listening to the conversation on the audio only version of the Big Bid Theory, well, the things Celeste said, I heard in South Carolina a week ago, we heard in San Diego before that, so on and so forth. So it's not unique. Please
Mm-hmm.
understand, you folks watching, it's not unique what Celeste is saying to Coral Gables, to South Florida, to the state of Florida, to the Southeast. It's pretty much what we're hearing all over. One of the things that we've tried to do, Celeste, here in season 9 of the show is we've had a dedicated focus on talking about careers in procurement. One of the reasons I invited you on is because of your leadership position, how long you've been involved in procurement. So, for anybody watching or listening, considering a career in purchasing. Maybe they're in some other industry, or, and I like to ask this as well, or for anybody who's currently in purchasing, but maybe looking to move to a new position. Well, you can take this wherever direction you want to take it, Celeste, but for anybody considering a position, what would you tell them about the benefits, the considerations, things that people really need to consider before making the move into purchasing?
Um, Purchasing is for me, you love it or you hate it. It really is two ends of the spectrum. And you're only going to be successful if you love it. And you're going to find that out as soon as you get into this profession, whether or not it's for you. It's not for the faint of heart, and you really have to have the fortitude for this type of work. Honestly, it's not one of those things that you fall into and you're like, oh, it's one thing that you do well or you don't. So it's something that you need to be dedicated to the craft. Most people take that lightly, but it is a craft, and it takes a specialty and some degree of understanding for you to be able to excel and do well in procurement. This is a profession that I always say the devil is in the details. If you are not a detailed person, it depends on what organization, but you're not going to be as successful, or you may struggle, because that's what this particular profession is about. You being detailed, you being thorough and analytical, forward thinking too. Is being able to do the job well. But someone who loves to have different experiences too. No one project is the same. You're always going to be able to get exposed to different stuff. So if you love that and you have the ability to excel in an environment that is forever changing, then procurement is for you. But for those things they want static and want things to always be the same, this is not the profession for you.
Yeah, that's well said. And Celeste, I haven't been in purchasing kind of this world as long as you have, but one of the things that I quickly learned is just the vast scope of what agencies, government, the public sector are purchasing. I mean, everything from butter to
Mhm.
building these huge construction projects, everything in
Yes,
between, pencils
yes,
to computers, you name it. I
yes.
mean,
You
you
name it.
you said it. I mean, no 2 days could be the same.
Same. Nope. No. We buy everything from A to Z, literally. We've bought,
A to Z.
we've bought insects for animals at the zoo, so you're buying animals for animals, so you can get involved with down to that kind of detail, but then the next day you're buying a helicopter. So, it just
Yeah.
goes from one spectrum to the other. It really does.
Yeah. Why do you love it? A moment ago, when you were talking about the benefits and the considerations of getting into purchasing, you said you have to love it. Why do you love it?
I do. I love it because I love a challenge. I call myself a jack of all trades, master of none, because I get exposed to just about everything. So everything is a learning opportunity for me, and I enjoy that. I enjoy being challenged, with having to come up with a new approach or a new idea to be able to solve a problem. So for me, I love it because, again, no 2 days are the same. And so, it's always continuation of another, and you build up on that to the next project with the knowledge that you've learned. So I love my job. I actually love what I do. I don't always love the politics and some of the other things that come along with it, but for my job, I do love my job.
So when I ask this question, you possibly have already touched upon your response in
Mm-hmm.
some way. Well, a lot of us would like to hit the rewind button, right? And go back to the start. Can't do
Mm-hmm.
that, right? The
Right.
pages keep turning on the calendar. It's a fact of life. But
Right.
if you could somehow go back in time 25, 30 years as Celeste was
Mm-hmm.
embarking on her career, if you could have 10 minutes with Celeste back then, and just what would you tell her in terms of preparing for her career? What do you wish you knew back then that you know now?
Run from procurement. No. So um what I would tell myself, at first I would tell myself to have been a little bit more assertive about what direction I wanted to pursue. But realistically, as far as procurement is concerned, I would have been more serious about the path that I was taking and about honing my skill and also adding education to it. When I started out, I won't say how old I am, there really wasn't a path for procurement, or they didn't have programs designed for that or courses. So you really had to carve out your own kind of like educational path with really hands-on experience. And so I would have probably focused or concentrated on that. But the biggest thing that I can give someone a takeaway if they're interested in this, it's just like everything else, and everything is about building relationships and building a relationship not only with your teammates but also with your customers to help smooth out your process. Because again, if you don't have a good relationship with your customer, they make life difficult, and that could be in any industry, and also too with your coworkers, because you guys lean on each other and get a lot of experience. So I feel like that building relationships and really focusing on your path and making sure that you dedicate the energy and the time to that will probably want to be one of the most beneficial things you can tell yourself when you're starting out.
Insightful words, Celeste. Thanks for sharing that. I think that'll help a lot of people as they embark on their careers. And we certainly need professional, talented, passionate people in purchasing. So I think you just shared some words that a lot of folks will be able to make use of.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So before we exit stage left, Celeste, so I've been to Coral Gables a number of times. Most recently, a couple of years ago, I was down in Miami, the Keys, Homestead, South Florida. Been to Coral Gables, absolutely beautiful. I don't know if I'm allowed to say "Go Marlins," but
You
went to a
can.
Marlins game. Okay,
Mhm.
so went to a Marlins game. Miami's beautiful. Coral Gables is absolutely gorgeous. So I've given a little bit of plug for Coral Gables. What about you? What's great about Coral Gables?
Well, we famous ourselves by saying it's the city beautiful. So you just touched on it. It really is a beautiful city. And we're also called Tree City, USA. The tree canopy here is one of the best and probably the more beautiful that you'll ever see as far as the city is concerned. And they put a focused, effort is towards beautifying that and making that one of the images that stick out as far as our city is concerned. Great people, great food, and they, faction ourselves behind saying, it's a small, small town with a big city feel, with some of the things that we have to offer, but still giving you the quaintness of a small city. And I will say that the city itself, as far as the government, is really a good place to work. It's hard to say that in most cases these days, but it's a good place to work, and you do feel like that the city itself and the organization feels it treats its employees how it wants to be treated, and it's a place that you feel like that you can grow into.
Very good. Nice plug there for Coral Gables. Well, Celeste, on behalf of our entire The Big Bid Theory team here, our audience tuned in, whether it be on YouTube or the audio version of the podcast, thanks so much for sharing some time with us, and all the best.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you for having me.